G20 nations will consider extending debt relief for coronavirus hit poor countries in the second half of this year. China has warned of a resolute response if Britain imposes sanctions against its officials. And now the news in detail. Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control and the rest of the world are observing accession to Pakistan Day today with a renewed pledge to continue the struggle for freedom from Indian occupation. On this day in 1947, genuine representatives of the Kashmiris unanimously passed a resolution of Kashmir's accession to Pakistan during a meeting of the All Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference at the residence of Sardar Muhammad Ibrahim Khan in Srinagar. The meeting unanimously demanded accession of the entire Jammu and Kashmir state to Pakistan in accordance with the aspirations of the people of the Muslim majority. The special seminars and symposia to mark the historic day at various places in Azad Kashmir were participated by representative leaders of people to reiterate the pledge to materialize the dream of accession of the entire Jammu and Kashmir state to Pakistan into a reality in the light of the historic resolution. The speakers strongly condemned the fresh ongoing wave of state terrorism and genocide of Kashmiri Muslims by the Indian occupying forces in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Prime Minister Imran Khan has reaffirmed Pakistan's unflinching commitment to the people of occupied Jammu and Kashmir and their inalienable right to self-determination. In a series of tweets on the occasion of accession to Pakistan Day, the Prime Minister said this inalienable right to self-determination was recognized by the United Nations Security Council and international laws. He said, "We reaffirm our commitment to the Kashmiri people and stand with them in the struggle for their inalienable right to self-determination." The Prime Minister also expressed the resolve to fight for justice for the oppressed Kashmiri people struggling against brutal and illegitimate actions of Hindutva supremacist Indian government. The Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, on the occasion of accession to Pakistan Day today, has also reaffirmed Pakistan's unwavering support to the people of occupied Jammu and Kashmir in their just struggle for freedom from the illegal Indian occupation. In a tweet, he said, "On this day in 1947, true representatives of Jammu and Kashmir adopted a historical resolution for accession to Pakistan." Shah Mahmood Qureshi said, "Despite decades of Indian occupation, the resolve of Kashmiris and immutable bonds to Pakistan stand strong." The Chairman Kashmir Committee Shahryar Khan Afridi says Pakistan will continue to extend political, moral and diplomatic support to the Kashmiri people in their legitimate struggle for inalienable right to self-determination. Speaking at a seminar in connection with accession to Pakistan Day in Islamabad today, he strongly condemned the enforcement of new laws in occupied Kashmir by the Modi regime aimed at demographic changes in the disputed territory. Speaking on the occasion, the President Azad Jammu and Kashmir Sardar Masood Khan said India is committing ceasefire violations to divert the world attention from its brutalities in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He said India is systematically bringing demographic changes in the occupied valley. In occupied Kashmir, as part of the Indian genocidal plans, a massive anti Muslim pogrom through a well trained force of Hindutva terrorists is in the works. In this regard, sources in the occupied territory informed the Kashmir Media Service that more than 30,000 Hindutva trained terrorists have arrived in Kashmir during the past 2 weeks. This is happening while the Indian Army led crackdown against the Kashmiri Muslim post August 5th last year is completing 1 year. That has been intensified in the guise of fighting COVID-19. The sources reveal that the Indian Army is transporting thousands of Hindutva affiliated terrorists through buses and aircrafts on daily basis. These people affiliated with various Hindu terror groups such as Rashtriya Savayam Sevak Sangh, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, Shiv Sena, Hindu Wahini, and Panoon Kashmir are trained in the use of swords and firearms, as well as arson and lynching. This is Radio Pakistan. The situation regarding coronavirus continues to improve as only 46 deaths from the virus were reported across the country during the last 24 hours. Meanwhile, the number of those recovering from COVID 19 also continues to increase, and 204,276 patients have so far recovered from the infection. According to the latest statistics, 1,579 new coronavirus cases were reported in the country during the last 24 hours, taking the total tally to 263,496. These include 112,118 in Sindh, 89,793 in the Punjab, 31,890 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, 11,424 in Balochistan, 14,576 in the Islamabad Capital Territory, 1,807 in Gilgit-Baltistan, and 1,888 in Azad Kashmir. The total death toll of the pandemic stood at 5,568. The number of coronavirus cases across the world has crossed 14.4 million, while the pandemic has so far claimed more than 600,000 lives. The United States is the worst hit, where cases have mounted to over 3.8 million and the death toll reached over 142,000. In Brazil, over 2 million cases and more than 78 deaths have been reported so far. More than 8.6 million patients have recovered from the infection across the world. The G20 nations will consider extending debt relief for coronavirus hit poor countries in the second half of this year. In a statement after the virtual talks hosted by Saudi Arabia, the finance ministers of the group and bankers said they would consider a possible extension of the debt suspension initiative in the second half of 2020. The World Bank President David Malpass has also called for debt suspension initiative to be extended through the end of 2021. So far, 42 countries have applied for the initiative, asking for a cumulative $5.3 billion in debt to be deferred. Secretary General of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Dr. Yusuf bin Ahmad Al Uthaymeen, chaired a virtual session entitled Distinguished Efforts of Islamic Countries in Dealing with Coronavirus Pandemic. At the opening of the session, the Secretary General praised the efforts made by the member countries to cope with coronavirus pandemic at the political, health, economic, humanitarian, and educational levels. China says it will respond resolutely to any attempt by Britain to sanction Chinese officials following the imposition of a security law in Hong Kong. Chinese ambassador in London, Liu Xiaoming, said in a statement that if the United Kingdom government goes that far to impose sanctions on any individual, China will certainly make a resolute response to it. Earlier this month, Britain introduced a new sanctions regime to target individuals it says were involved in human rights abuses or organized crime. In Yemen, the government forces have claimed to have killed rebel commander during a clash in southern Adali province. The army's website said Ali Muhammad Ali al-Zarqi was killed, along with a number of Houthi rebels in the city of Qataba in the province. According to the website, Germany forces carried out a surprise attack on the rebels, leaving a number of them dead and injured. And finally, the weather. Mainly hot and humid weather is expected in most parts of the country during the next 12 hours. However, rain, wind, thunder showers is expected in Upper Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Upper Central Punjab, Islamabad, East Balochistan, Kashmir, and Gilgit-Baltistan. And that is the end of this news bulletin. For more news and analyses, log on to our website, radio.gov.pk, and you can also watch the live video streaming of our bulletins on the link facebook.com/Radio Pakistan News Official.